So it's been a couple days since I shot the last video, and my dual Pentium II 450s mashed pair have shown up. It's like one of them's got a dual fan Antec cooler, and the other one looks like it has a more of a stock Avid or Avid, however you want to pronounce that, cooler on it. Let's go ahead and get these babies out of the bag here, and it looks like someone they sealed this bag up. Well, we'll have to set the camera down here and get this baby opened up. Got the, it's not a bat knife. Bat knife, it's not a bat knife, it's not a bat knife, it's not a bat knife. Okay. Let's see if these are actually what they said they were supposed to be. Yep. 455 12 PE. Sweet. So before I go ahead and throw these in the machine, I want to go ahead and show you guys something about these Pentium 2s that you may or may not have known about. One of the problems people had back in the day in overclocking these things was the fact that Intel, in their infinite wisdom, would not actually make the heatsink contact the cache modules there. And there's actually, let me just go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit here and get my camera in, and you can see there's a gap between the heatsink and the cache memory right there. And back in the day, people would use either thermal pads, or something I did was I just put a glob of thermal compound there, just enough to fill up the gap. I can also use some copper shims with some thermal compound on either side and get those cache memory modules into contact with the I don't know what you want to call it, the base plate that the heatsink actually attaches to. And if you look at the heatsink itself, you can see there's a little bit of a gap there as well, because the center of it, I'm assuming, has a thermal pad, or it's kind of raised up a little bit. I don't know. I'm not going to bother taking the heat sinks off right now, nor am I going to bother to fix that. Running these things at the default clock, it doesn't cause a problem. Although in my book, you know, I would say, well, in the long run, it's probably a good idea for stability reasons to go ahead and fix this obvious cache problem of the heat transfer there, because there is no heat transfer. But it's never really been a problem. If you leave them at default clock speed, it's never really been a problem. You can also see down in there the processor right there, as it is a flip chip processor. Right before the Pentium 3 uses the same design as the Pentium 3 does as far as the flip chip thing is concerned. The other thing about these heat sinks is that the heat sink over on this side of it, this extra side, never comes into contact again with anything on that contact surface there of the processor. It's only the center portion that actually pulls the heat. So I never quite understood what the point was of this on these heat sinks, because really these sides of the heat sink aren't even doing anything at all. It's just really the center side that's doing all the heat absorption and the cooling. I guess maybe some of it eventually kind of wicks, some of the heat kind of wicks into the outer portions of the heat sink, but yeah, that can also be taken care of with some thermal pads or some shims or something like that in there, but it's really not a big deal since I'm not going to be overclocking these anyway. Well, I was getting ready to put these in the computer, and I remembered I wanted to do one more thing. You see, over the years, these contacts on the card edge right here can build up a little bit of oxidation, just like an Atari cartridge or a Nintendo cartridge or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it with some friendly contact cleaner and a Q-tip to clean those off. I'm also going to likewise do the same thing to the slot 1 socket on the motherboard itself, although I'm not going to use a Q-tip obviously to get in there. But do I think they really need it? No, but I might as well. So let's go ahead and soak the Q-tip a little bit here, just like so. I'm going to go ahead and lightly douse this connector here. And we'll just go ahead and rub this along those pins right there. And let's just see how much gunk we actually end up taking off of these pins, because these processors are probably a good almost 20 years old now. Yeah, there's a little bit there coming off. Definitely not as much as I would have expected. Of course, these are gold-plated pins, but still, they can build up some oxidation over time. Of course, the processor wants to go ahead and slide on the desk while I'm doing this. Yeah, not too bad. We got some nice shiny pins right there, you can see. Let's go ahead and do this one. I'm going to go ahead and hit this with some, if it doesn't want to roll off on me here. See, this stuff I think is made out of mostly denatured alcohol, and as such it evaporates extremely fast, so I like to go ahead and get as much of it pulled up as I can, but it'll dry long before I actually get these processors into the slot. And that's one of the reasons why contact cleaner, at least this stuff anyway, it's made with the denatured alcohol, is non-conductive of electricity, and so that's why it's okay to spray this stuff on electronics even when they're turned on, because there is no conductivity and you're not going to short anything out. But there we go. Yeah, that one was a little bit more filthy, but I think we're good to go. Alright, now it's time to go ahead and put these in the motherboard right after I give those slots on the motherboard a quick breezing of the contact cleaner as well. Alright, so the processors are snugly secured into the motherboard here. I also went ahead and put the fan back in place and angled it so that hopefully it'll be able to pull a little bit better air. I don't know from where, but who knows, circulate some air around, do something, I don't know. Fortunately, the way they did this fan was that they plugged the 3-pin connector into the CPU fan 2 header on top of the motherboard up here, which I had to use for the second processor. So now I have nowhere to plug this into, at least on the motherboard. So I'm going to have to get, if I decide to use this fan, I'm going to have to get an adapter to go to the Molex connector there. I thought I had one, but I'm not seeing it right now, so I may have to scrounge around work. I bet you there's a few dozen of these sitting around at work. But no matter, this isn't really going to be a big deal whether it's working or not. If these little fans end up being like really loud and, you know, something like that, I might go ahead and just disconnect these fans and let this one 90mm fan, I think this is a 90mm, just blow air onto these, and that might cool them good enough. Although this thing's not terribly quiet either, but I don't know, we'll see what happens here. Right now we're just kind of tinkering a little bit here. This is one of the things that unfortunately kind of sucks about these older cases. You know, they're just so tall and they seem like they have so much room in them, but when you get right down to it, they really don't. You know, it's hard to get cables long enough, especially IDE cables, long enough to reach from the headers on the motherboard all the way up to the top there. And it's also a problem because they always like to mount these hard drives right here, and the cables in the hard drives essentially are blocking the memory right here from being easily accessible, although you can pull the memory out without having to remove the hard drives. But yeah, that's they're tall, but they're narrow. They're not deep, you know, front to back. They're not deep as like the newer cases are. But this was an expensive case back in the day, I'll tell you what. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the
installation for the drivers of the 770 here. And this is not the Ultra version. I used to have the Ultra version, and I actually still have the box and all of the original game discs, driver discs, and the manuals that came with it. Although it's kind of funny that the manuals are for the V770, even though it was the Ultra version, but there's really not any difference between the two other than clock speed. So I'm just going to show you the installation of these drivers. And Diamond Multimedia is probably one of my favorite vintage video card companies. Anyway, let's go ahead and do this. So there we go, the V770. Just to give you guys kind of an idea what these video card installations were like back in the late 90s. This video card would actually be appropriate for this system, as it was actually made in 1999. So yeah, let's go ahead and do the driver install here. Yes, I want to do the drivers. Now, the updated drivers that I could get on their website would be probably a little bit better than the ones that are currently on the disc. I'm just going to do the standard installation here. We're just going to do DirectX 6.1 and all this funny stuff, which the driver updates is pretty much worthless nowadays, obviously, but I can always go ahead and uninstall that, I think. But it doesn't really matter, so let's go ahead and do this. Now, I actually have a plan. This is actually, turns out, a Pentium III 450 processor that is in this system. I'm going to go ahead and change it a little bit. I would like to have dual Pentium II 450s in this. Newer version already exists. Okay, cool. Dual Pentium II 450s, just because I'd like to have something unique. You know, I've got a Pentium 3 system in the Ultimate Retro Gaming Machine 1.0, which I need to do an updated video about. You know, that's basically pretty much the ultimate for the end of the Pentium 3 era, unless you count the Pentium M, of course. But it'd be kind of nice to have the last great Pentium 2 system, essentially, which would have been the 450 megahertz Pentium 2 chip. And since this is a dual configuration, well, we might as well just go ahead and slap two of them in there. Now, like I said before, I'm planning on actually doing multiple operating systems on this computer. I figured, why not? I might as well go ahead and use some of these old IDE hard drives that I've got and take advantage of these removable hard drive caddies that I've got also. And probably do NT 98. I don't think I'm going to do 95, but I'm definitely going to do 98. Probably NT 2000. I might play around with Linux a little bit on the system, but I'm definitely going to do BOS on this, which I'll do a video about if I can find my disk anyway. I'd like to get BOS 5, and I may also try the new version of BOS 5. I need to fix this, try to find the right driver for this network card, is the one I put on there. Apparently wasn't the right one, but anyway. And I'll do an auto adjust on this. Yes, hurry up. Okay, Diamond registration. Start registering your product. Well, I don't really want to register it, so I'm just going to go ahead and cancel it. But this is what driver installations off the CD was like back then. Alright. And if you've never seen the Diamond in control tools, as they called it, I'm going to show that here in a minute as it loads up. Okay, there it goes. So it tells you what the current bit rate. Let me zoom in on the screen a little bit here. Tells you what the current bit rate and color depth of the screen is. It also gives you this, which is kind of funky. So you can just kind of go ahead and click anywhere on the screen and bring up the start menu. And you click on the icon there and you get this whole menu here. Switch desktop, you can switch your resolution and color depth right here. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this in 1024x768. Yes, I want to do that. Let me zoom out a little bit here again. Yes, I like those settings. So let's go to the Diamond Properties window here, and you can see it tells us a lot of information about the video card itself, or at least who to call when you've got problems. And of course they don't list the Ghostbusters here anyway. So you can customize the pop-up menu here and decide what you want to show and remove. It's kind of handy. You can add your internet sites right here. Basically anything that's in your favorites already in Internet Explorer you can go ahead and add to the list here. Technical, that just opens up the browser. I don't want to do this. Yes, do not show this in the future. And let's go to details here. Now this will show you a little bit about the system here. Pentium III processor, AMI BIOS, current version of Windows, IE version, and display information, NVIDIA Riva TNT2, 32 megabytes of SD RAM, driver name V770. If this actually recognized this monitor as an HP L1910, that would be displayed right here, but plug and play monitor works just fine. And this funky little kind of interesting about in control tools little multimedia video thing right here, probably made in Macromedia like everything else back then was. Kind of gives you the list of the people who wrote the software, which I guess is kind of cool. It's a little credits at the end of a movie kind of a thing here. But you know, just some of those interesting things that they did back then, even on drivers, to kind of make their cards stand out a little bit. And Diamond was one of them that did this. I believe Creative Labs did this also with some of their cards. And of course the Voodoo 2s had that kind of the same thing in the display properties. And of course the right click also gives you the same menu as well. You got the color correction bars here, Diamond 3D, which will let you adjust some of the 3D settings here, anti-aliasing, mapping, and you've got this little video playing over here, which is pretty cool. But apparently I can't edit any of this. Huh. I wonder if that's a bug in the driver. I can't click on any of this. Well, I might have to try to update that a little bit, but anyway. That's it for the driver installation of the video card for now. Okay, so everything's booted up and looking good except for one tiny little thing here. As you can see, it's still only recognizing one of the two processors. So we'll take care of that, I hope, by going into computer. As you can see, this is installed as a uniprocessor PC because I already installed Windows 2000 while it was still the single Pentium III processor. So let's just go in here and we'll change this. We'll update the driver to a multi-processor PC. And we'll go ahead and reboot the system, and we'll see if that takes care of our little dilemma right now. Tell you what though, this thing boots up faster with this IBM DeskStar 13 gig drive than that PC that Screensavers built, UGM 3.0. That thing was a slow ass booter, especially since it had an Athlon XP and all that stuff. So let's go in here. Do we have two processors? Yes we do. Look at that. Sweet! Now, even though 2000 has most of the drivers, actually all the drivers anyway, I'll get rid of that icon. Worthless junk Microsoft put on here.
even though it had the drivers for the sound card and for the TNT2 and all that stuff. I'm going to go in here and probably update those. But I do have to say, though, that 2000 seems to be running quite nicely on this. You can see it's recognizing the gigabyte of RAM there quite nicely. Now what I did was, this computer's still got the original SCSI drives in it, and they're actually in a RAID 0. I didn't know that until later on. So what I did is I went ahead and just formatted them as a FAT32, and this is recognizing it as a J drive. So I'm just going to go ahead and probably install most or all the games on the J drive, benchmarks, DOS games, you know, Windows 2000, you know, NT running, you know, stuff that runs with NT on this drive, and then I can be able to access the files and whatever else from pretty much any operating system that I install on this computer. I've already got 98 installed on another hard drive, and that's only a 3 gig drive, but let me go ahead and get some software on this Windows 2000, get the drivers installed. I'm actually surprised by the amount of air that's blowing out of this 90mm fan back here, 92mm fan, and this power supply fan. Let me just go ahead and demonstrate that. Now I've actually got quite a bit of air blowing in from the window here right now. If you take a look at this, this is the bag that those little processors were in. Just drop that down there. Whoa, holy crap. Just blowing that thing all the way out there. Take it back out. And it's not particularly loud either. Actually, the loudest thing is actually the hard drive, the SCSI drives. One of the things that sure does frost my ass, besides the fact that my neighbor is mowing his lawn, is NVIDIA's website. You know, you go on here, and apparently I don't have Windows 2000 drivers for this TNT2 video card downloaded already. Everything that I have archived is apparently newer than this, so went on Google here with Opera. I loaded Opera on this thing, which I'll talk about maybe in a minute here. You know, I Google it, NVIDIA TNT2 Windows 2000 driver. Takes me right to the NVIDIA site. I'm like, cool. So you go right here. Supposedly this is the latest and greatest driver that NVIDIA had that supported the TNT2 video card under 2000. So you just go under here and you say, yes, I agree, I accept, and it takes you right back to the home page. Well, this is not Opera's fault, because I tried it on the other computer as well, and it does the exact same thing. You know, these companies, if they're going to archive these files or have an archive link on their website, they probably should make sure that it works, because it doesn't work. Well, other than the fact that once you go to YouTube, the processor goes to 100% usage, browsing the internet on this thing is really not too terrible with Opera. I'm running Opera 12.02, which is the last version that I can tell anyway that would run on Windows 2000. I did try to download Chrome because it says it's multi-threaded, but that didn't really go so well. So just kind of looking around a little bit, and I discovered that there is an unofficial Service Pack 5. Oh, these freaking advertisements. You can get from MajorGeeks.com, and apparently this is 403 hotfixes. So it sounds to me like it's pretty much a compilation of most, if not everything, that was originally on the Windows 2000 automatic updates. So we'll see what happens when I install that. I'm kind of curious, but yeah, so far it's still coming along. So I think I'm going to end this video for now, and I'll get some gaming videos maybe on this machine. I don't know yet. We'll see. But we'll see how it goes. So anyway, take care, everyone. Thanks for liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing all of my videos.